He smirked and told the glittering crowd, "This is Mary, my maid, she just keeps the house in order." While she stood there in her royal blue gown, absorbing the sting without a word. Guests chuckled. Phones captured the moment. Then the CFO stepped forward, locked eyes with her, and delivered the line that turned Martin's world to ice, because the woman he dismissed was moments from claiming the stage, and his empire was about to shatter before their eyes. Please sit back, relax, as we dive fully into this really remarkable story. Martin sat at his desk, gazing at the email illuminating his laptop screen as if it were a gateway to unchallenged dominance. Stevenson Enterprises Historic Merger Gala. Invitation only. His heart raced. This was it. The pinnacle he'd engineered through years of calculated alliances, polished speeches, and relentless image crafting had arrived. An invite to the gala meant he was untouchable. And in Martin's world, being untouchable was everything. "Mary," he called out, his voice carrying through their expansive but understated home. The scent of fresh flowers wafted from the living room, the faint melody of classical piano underscoring the refined tranquility. She appeared shortly after, adjusting a vase with quiet precision. "Yes, dear." Martin swiveled his laptop toward her, beaming. "Check this out. The merger gala. They've invited me. You know what this means?" She smiled, truly pleased for him. "It means your vision is finally being celebrated." He nodded but adjusted her words swiftly. "It means I'm the one they all look to now, Mary, the architect of it all." She leaned in, eyeing the sophisticated invitation layout. "It sounds prestigious. You'll need your best tuxedo. And you'll join me," he added, already envisioning the scene. "It's for couples. Everyone brings their spouses." Mary paused. "Me? Naturally. But keep it understated," he said offhandedly, sipping his espresso. "You know how these elite circles operate. I don't want any distractions from the main event." She tilted her head. "Distractions?" He set the cup down with a sigh. "You get it, just elegant, nothing flashy. You shine brightest when you're subtle." Her posture stiffened subtly. It wasn't new, this phrasing. Mary had grown accustomed to decoding it. Subtle meant, "Don't outshine me." "Of course," she replied gently. "Something elegant." As she moved to leave, Martin's voice trailed after her. "And Mary, at the event, if questions come up, just go with it if I frame our life a certain way. These people are all about perception, I can't unpack our whole story in one afternoon." Her pace slowed. "Frame it how?" He gestured dismissively. "Nothing major. Maybe say you handle home affairs. Until I solidify my standing." Mary turned to face him. "You mean introduce me as your maid?" Martin's face tightened. "Don't blow it out of proportion. It's strategic networking. These executives are cutthroat. You wouldn't grasp the nuances of boardroom politics." Her fingers tightened briefly, but her voice stayed even. "I grasp dignity, Martin, and reducing me to that doesn't feel like dignity." He exhaled sharply. "Mary, let's not turn this into an issue. Just one day. I'm securing our legacy here. Once the merger's sealed, it'll all shift." The piano music seemed to fade in the pause. At last, she inclined her head. "If that's what you require." He grinned, tension easing. "That's my partner." That night, Mary lay awake next to him, his even breaths filling the shadowed bedroom. She gazed at the ceiling, reflecting on how effortlessly he'd diminished her, how invisible he'd made her feel. Once, Martin had cherished her quiet wisdom. Now, it seemed a threat to his spotlight. She murmured to herself, "You'll recognize me soon, Martin, for everything I truly am." But he slumbered on, lost in visions of sunlight, toasts and acclaim. The days leading up blurred into readiness. Martin acquired a tailored tuxedo, devoted time to refining his gestures, practicing his merger remarks, and studying attendee profiles. Mary methodically prepared his attire, observing silently. When she mentioned her outfit, he barely glanced from the mirror. Something refined. Perhaps that royal blue gown from the benefit, the timeless one. She nodded and stepped away. The afternoon of the gala, sunlight streamed bright without a cloud. Mary waited by the entrance in her royal blue gown, her dark waves cascading elegantly, diamond studs gleaming softly. Martin appraised her. Acceptable, he noted, adjusting his bow tie. Time to go. She offered a subtle smile. Thank you. The ride to the venue stretched in silence. The city skyline shimmered ahead, towers reflecting the daylight. Mary stared out, her mind elsewhere. Martin, murmuring his lines, overlooked her clasped hands. Upon arrival, lenses sparked at the entry. Attendants ushered them in. Chatter, flutes of champagne, satin dresses. It was a realm of opulence. Martin straightened his posture, his poise inflating. Stick to what we discussed, he murmured. Composed. Gracious. Blend in. She nodded. Certainly. He extended his arm, then retracted it partway as associates beckoned. Martin. He strode forward with a grin, leaving her trailing slightly. Mary followed steadily, her steps echoing on the polished stone. Inside, the outdoor pavilion glowed with crystal chandeliers and floral arches under the sun. A string quartet played gentle melodies. Servers in crisp uniforms wove through clusters with trays of effervescent drinks. Mary's breath paused, not from the splendor, but from the odd blend of radiance and detachment in faces that grinned superficially. Martin integrated seamlessly, his chuckles amplified. When a peer inquired about the graceful woman beside him, he laughed lightly and said, "Ah, Mary, she manages the household details. My essential support staff." The group smiled courteously. Mary's expression held steady, but inwardly, resolve stirred. She stepped aside briefly, heading to a floral display. As she glimpsed her reflection in a gilded mirror, poised yet marginalized in this arena of illusions, deep within, a quiet power began to stir. The afternoon progressed like a performance Martin believed he commanded. He navigated circles, clasping hands, inflating his merger contributions, feigning effortless belonging. Mary lingered peripherally, tasting a sparkling water and watching. She felt no resentment or envy, merely a serene separation, as if viewing a script she'd long outgrown. At one moment, an older guest with a pearl brooch neared her. "Pardon me," she said warmly. "I must say, your gown is exquisite." Mary smiled. "Please sit back, relax, and join me as we uncover the layers of this empowering tale of hidden strength and hard truths." Martin had always been a man forged in the fires of scarcity. Born to a single mother in a cramped apartment on the city's fringes, he learned young that survival wasn't about what you had, but what others believed you possessed. Perception was power, the right suit could open doors, a confident nod could seal deals. By his 20s, he'd clawed his way into Stevenson Enterprises as a junior analyst, turning late-night hustles into a billion-dollar empire. Every step reinforced the lesson: image wasn't vanity, it was armor. Mary entered his life during those hungry years, a brilliant finance consultant with a quiet grace that grounded him. He adored her humility then, how she deflected praise, letting him bask in the glow of their shared successes. She was his secret weapon, whispering strategies over coffee that turned risks into triumphs. They married in a simple ceremony, her unassuming nature a perfect counter to his rising star, but as the empire swelled, so did Martin's insecurities. Mary's subtlety now felt like a shadow on his spotlight. In boardrooms filled with pedigreed elites, he imagined their whispers, why her? So, ordinary. He rationalized it endlessly. Just one night, he'd tell himself. These people wouldn't understand our story, not yet. Once the merger's done, I'll elevate her properly, yet Mary was no ornament. Behind closed doors, her strategic mind shaped the company's core, vetting acquisitions, stabilizing volatile markets, even drafting the merger blueprint they celebrated today. She thrived in the unseen, her decisions rippling through reports Martin claimed as his own. Roger Miller, the CFO, saw it all. A steady presence in his mid-50s, with sharp eyes and a measured demeanor, Roger treated Mary with quiet reverence, consulting her on forecasts, nodding at her insights in meetings. Martin dismissed it as politeness, blind to the loyalty brewing that eye in the mirror that morning. Martin rehearsed his gala lines, smirking as he practiced, "Meet Mary, she's my maid, keeping things tidy at home." The words rolled off easily, a clever jest to charm the crowd. He never paused to weigh the wound. Mary had always possessed a brilliance that burned steadily, like a flame shielded from the wind. Raised in a modest suburb by academic parents, she pursued economics at Harvard, graduating summa cum laude with a thesis on predictive market modeling that drew quiet acclaim from professors. Her mind was a labyrinth of strategies, calculating risks, forecasting trends, turning chaos into calculated wins. Yet she chose consulting over the spotlight, preferring to architect success from the wings. In flashbacks that flickered like old film reels, Mary's influence on Stevenson Enterprises emerged. During the 2018 downturn, when competitors crumbled, she sat across from Martin in their dimly lit study, sketching recovery plans on napkins. "Diversify into renewables," she'd advised, her voice calm amid his panic. He presented it as his epiphany in the boardroom, but it was her foresight that stabilized finances, saving millions. For the merger with Apex Tech 2 years ago, she vetted every clause, spotting liabilities others missed, quietly emailing revisions that sealed the deal. And in last year's supply chain crisis, her risk algorithms rerouted logistics overnight, averting collapse. Martin claimed the victories, Mary ensured they happened. She stayed in the shadows by design. Let him shine, she'd tell herself, knowing his ego fueled the drive that built their life. Her protection was subtle, anonymous tips to executives, data packets slipped to Roger without fanfare. It kept the company agile, unburdened by her name drawing scrutiny, the board noticed. In closed sessions, whispers grew, Mary's analyses were gold. Roger Miller, ever the observer, championed her first. "She's the steady hand," he'd argue in strategy meetings, his tone unwavering. Martin leads the charge, Mary charts the course. Gradually, trust solidified, votes leaned her way on key decisions. When the CEO transition loomed, Roger approached her privately. "It's time," he said. Mary agreed, but on her terms, no fanfare, no confrontation. The gala, with its merger spotlight, would be the reveal. Clean, institutional. As preparations peaked, Mary resolved, she wouldn't correct Martin's gala slight herself. She'd let the system, the board, the announcement, speak the truth. The gala unfolded under a flawless January sky, sunlight pouring over the manicured estate like liquid gold. It was 1 p.m., the hour chosen for its vibrant clarity, no shadows to hide behind. String lights dangled from wrought iron arches, twinkling prematurely against the daylight, while champagne flutes circulated on silver trays, bubbles rising in effervescent promise. Elite guests milled about in tailored suits and silk gowns, tech moguls with practiced smiles, financiers clutching crystal glasses, and board members exchanging nods laden with subtext. The air hummed with string quartet melodies and the soft clink of toasts, a symphony of status where every glance was a transaction. Martin Stevenson reveled in it, his tuxedo impeccable, his posture a declaration of arrival. He navigated the crowd like a conductor, absorbing compliments on the merger with feigned modesty. "It's all about vision," he'd say, his smirk inviting admiration. This was his arena, the culmination of years where perception solidified into power. He felt untouchable, the sun warming his skin as if endorsing his reign. Mary moved beside him, elegant in her royal blue gown that caught the light like polished sapphire. Her silence was a veil, her expression unreadable, poised, yet distant, like a statue amid the revelry. She observed the spectacle quietly, her dark eyes scanning faces without engaging, her presence a subtle anchor. Martin barely acknowledged that it happened during a cluster of executives, their conversation turning to personal lives. One asked about the woman at his side. Martin chuckled, gesturing casually. "This is Mary, she's my maid, keeping the house in order." The words landed like a jest, light and dismissive. Reactions rippled, some laughter, sharp and obliging from those eager to align, others discomfort, averted eyes and tightened smiles from the more discerning. Roger Miller, standing nearby in his crisp suit, noticed everything, his calm gaze lingering on Mary's composed face, a flicker of understanding in his observant eyes. Inside, Mary felt the pain, a familiar ache blooming in her chest. But it mingled with resolve, steeling her spine. Not yet, she thought. Let it unfold. As the speeches neared, an attendant handed Roger the microphone. Have you ever witnessed or experienced a moment of casual cruelty like Martin's introduction? How did it make you feel, and what would you have done in Mary's shoes? Drop your stories below. The string quartet faded into a respectful hush as Roger Miller stepped forward, the microphone gleaming under the afternoon sun. He adjusted his tie with deliberate calm, his presence a pillar of authority, white hair neatly combed, suit sharp as a ledger line. The crowd leaned in, anticipating the merger's formal toast. Roger cleared his throat, his voice resonant and measured, carrying across the pavilion without effort. First, a word of gratitude to Martin Stevenson, he began, nodding toward Martin with professional courtesy. Your leadership has brought us to this historic day, guiding Stevenson Enterprises through challenges and toward unprecedented growth. Martin smiled, basking in the acknowledgement, his chest swelling with the crowd's approving murmurs. It was the validation he'd orchestrated, the capstone to his performance. Then, Roger pivoted, his tone unwavering. But as we celebrate this merger, we also mark a new chapter. Please welcome our new CEO, Mary Stevenson. The words hung in the air like a sudden eclipse. Silence descended, thick and absolute, the kind that swallows conversations mid-breath. Champagne flutes paused midway to lips. Phones, moments ago angled for candid shots, lowered slowly, screens forgotten. Guests exchanged glances, confusion rippling into realization. Martin froze. Physically, his body locked, smile petrifying into a mask, hand mid-gesture as if time had snagged on the revelation. Mentally, the world tilted. Every earlier moment recontextualized in a flash, Mary's quiet advice over years, dismissed as support, her unseen hand in mergers he'd claimed, the board's subtle deference he'd ignored. The maid just echoed back, no longer clever but cruel, a self-inflicted wound exposed in daylight. His empire, his image, crumbling not from external force, but from the truth he'd buried. Amid the stillness, Mary stepped forward calmly, her royal blue gown catching the light as she ascended the low stage, her poise unbroken. That CEO announcement, total game changer. Did you see it coming, or were you as shocked as Martin? Comment your predictions and reactions. Mary reached the podium with the same unhurried grace that had carried her through the afternoon, her royal blue gown flowing like a statement of quiet authority. The sun continued its gentle descent, casting elongated shadows across the pavilion, but her presence held the light. She adjusted the microphone slightly, her voice emerging clear and composed, laced with the dignity of someone who had long prepared for this threshold. Thank you, Roger, she began, her tone measured, each word deliberate. Today marks not just a merger, but a commitment to innovation and stability at Stevenson Enterprises. Our path forward builds on strong foundations, strategic vision, resilient teams, and partnerships that endure. I'm honored to lead us into this next era, focusing on growth that benefits all stakeholders. She paused briefly, her gaze sweeping the crowd with inclusive warmth, then concluded with a nod. Let's raise a glass to the future. No mention of the earlier slight. No glance toward Martin. Her words centered the company, the merger, the collective, elevating the moment beyond personal spectacle. Applause erupted, tentative at first, then swelling as the elite adjusted. Murmurs rippled, impressive poise. Didn't see that coming. Phones re-emerged, capturing the shift, toasts resumed with renewed energy. The crowd realigned seamlessly, whispers of Martin's introduction fading into irrelevance as Mary's leadership became the new gravity. Martin stood rooted, his frozen smile cracking into bewilderment. He waited, for anger in her eyes, a vindictive aside, some acknowledgement that pierced his armor. Anything to reclaim narrative control, to frame this as a misunderstanding he could spin. His pulse thrummed with anticipation, mind racing through defenses. She'll explain. She'll soften it for me that he got nothing. Mary's focus remained forward, engaging Roger in a brief exchange, then stepping aside as the quartet resumed. No look his way. No words. The absence struck deeper than any reproach, a void that echoed his earlier dismissal. In that silence, Martin glimpsed the truth. The loss cut beyond reputation, it severed the invisible threads of trust he'd taken for granted. Mary's silence speaks volumes. Would you have confronted Martin right then, or let the moment stand like she did? Share why in the comments. The applause faded into a distant hum, but Martin remained anchored in place, the pavilion's sunlight now feeling like a harsh interrogation lamp. His mind unraveled in slow, merciless threads, pulling at the seams of his carefully woven self. How had it come to this? The untouchable billionaire, reduced to a spectator in his own triumph. He replayed the moments like a looped reel of regret. The maid comment, casual, clever in his mind, now echoed as a hollow cruelty, his smirk a mask for insecurity. Every dismissal flooded back, the late-night strategy sessions where he'd wave off her insights as helpful suggestions, claiming them as his breakthroughs the next day. The board meetings where he'd interrupt her subtle corrections, steering the conversation to his vision. The quiet evenings at home, her questions about the company met with patronizing smiles. Don't worry about that, Mary. I've got it handled. The realization struck like a delayed thunderclap. Mary hadn't stolen power. She already had it, woven into the fabric of Stevenson Enterprises through years of unseen architecture. Her mergers, her stabilizations, her visions, they were the pillars he'd stood upon, mistaking them for his own foundation. Deeper still, he understood the true fracture. He'd lost her respect long before the gala, eroded it with every diminishment, every assumption that her humility was his to exploit. It wasn't the public reversal that gutted him, it was the private erosion, the way he traded her dignity for his façade. The weight pressed in, but resolve flickered. He couldn't let it end in silence. As the crowd dispersed into clusters of conversation, Martin wove through them, approaching Mary privately where she stood near a floral arch, her back to him. Martin closed the distance under the floral arch, the sunlight filtering through petals like fragmented regrets. The crowd's chatter formed a distant veil, but here, in this semi-private nook, the air felt heavier, charged with unspoken fractures. Mary's back was to him, her posture straight as she conversed softly with a board member. He cleared his throat, voice emerging hoarse. Mary, can we talk? Alone? She turned slowly, her expression neutral, neither welcoming nor hostile, just present. The board member excused himself with a polite nod, leaving them in isolation amid the lingering gala. Martin stepped closer, hands fidgeting uncharacteristically. I'm sorry. That introduction, it was stupid. A joke gone wrong. I didn't mean to. Mary listened, her dark eyes steady, absorbing his words without interruption. She didn't flinch or probe, didn't reopen the wounds with accusations or tears. Instead, she let his apology hang, incomplete, like a bridge half-built. When he trailed off, expecting her to fill the void, she spoke evenly. "Martin, power was never the issue between us." Her tone was factual, devoid of heat. "I've held it quietly for years, guiding the decisions, shaping the path. But respect, that's what eroded. Bit by bit, in ways you never saw." He opened his mouth to argue, to explain it as pressure or habit, but the words dissolved. She didn't engage, didn't counter or escalate. No argument bloomed, she simply stood there, explaining without demand. "And forgiveness?" he pressed, voice cracking slightly. "Can we?" She offered a faint, sad smile, not cruel, but final. "That's not mine to give right now. I've stepped forward, Martin. Into what I've built." With that, she turned, gliding back toward the crowd, her royal blue gown a banner of independence. Martin watched her go, the daylight crowd swallowing her seamlessly. He remained alone, the sun's warmth mocking his isolation. In the weeks that followed, Mary fully assumed leadership with the same understated precision that had defined her contributions. Board meetings shifted under her guidance, no grand overhauls, just refined strategies that amplified efficiency and innovation. She navigated the merger's integration seamlessly, her decisions fostering collaborations that expanded Stevenson Enterprises into new markets. Employees noted the change, a quieter confidence in the halls, where ideas flowed without the shadow of ego. The company thrived, stock prices climbing steadily, headlines praising the seamless transition. As if it had always been inevitable, the world moved on, as it does with such spectacles. Gala whispers faded into boardroom lore, replaced by fresh mergers and market shifts. Guests from that sunlit afternoon sent congratulatory notes, their alliances realigning without drama. Mary's name became synonymous with strategic poise, invitations pouring in for her, not as an accessory, but as the architect. Martin, meanwhile, faded from relevance, not with a crash, but a gradual dimming. He retained an advisory role on paper, but influence waned, calls went unreturned, his input sidelined in favor of Mary's vision. No scandals erupted, no public falls, just the quiet irrelevance of a man who'd built his world on illusions. He wandered his expansive home alone, the echoes of past triumphs now hollowed. In the end, the reflection settled like dusk, power without respect corrodes, eating away at foundations until nothing holds. Love without dignity is not love, merely a transaction, fragile and fleeting. That he had introduced her as his maid, and taught her exactly why she needed to stand alone. Power without respect corrodes. What's one lesson from Mary's journey that resonates with you? Tag a friend who needs this story and tell us below.